Hello everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. We are thrilled to welcome Christy Peterson as our host for today's webinar. Cashing in your ticket, get the most out of your university's career services and alumni benefits. My name is Donald and I'm going to be the moderator for this webinar. It will last around 30 minutes followed by a 15-minute Q&A, so be sure to submit any questions you have in the chat box on the right side of your GoToWebinar window. Christy Peterson is the Executive Director and Lead Consultant for Compass Consulting, a graduate of both UCLA and Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. She's an alumni relations and communication strategies expert and specializes in coaching recent college graduates as they enter the workforce. In this webinar, Christy will fill you in on all the secrets to getting the most out of your alumni association and university student services like the Career Center. Without further ado, I'd like to pass it off to Christy.
Hello everyone, happy to be here today. So what I like to do at the beginning of any webinar is just take you really quickly through what I hope to get through for the day, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about who I am and why I'm the one doing the presentation. But as we've already heard, we are here today to talk about getting the most out of your university career services, which is often part of what you've paid for is your tuition as a student, and also your alumni relations department. I'm going to dispel some myths, let you in on a couple of secrets, and hopefully give you some ideas about how best to utilize those. I'm also going to talk a little bit about alumni associations and the big resource that you all are already aware of LinkedIn, but how to actually dig in and use it in the most effective way as it pertains to where you went to school. This webinar is mostly designed for students and recent graduates, so I do know we have a few other alumni professionals and career services professionals on the line, and I'll be sure to address a couple of questions that came through ahead of time that pertain to your work as a professional in the university setting. Okay, so who am I and why am I doing this presentation? So I spent about 10 years at University of California, Los Angeles, working in a role that straddled student affairs and alumni relations. So I really was at the juncture between students becoming recent graduates, advising student leaders, advising student clubs on how to use their student services and get them involved in the Alumni Association. So I really got to see a lot of what students either somehow didn't hear about or weren't utilizing effectively, and then taught them how to do it. I also then spent 3 years as the Director of Alumni Relations at the Buckley School, which is for younger students. It's a K-12, but in my work there, I also saw a lot of students who struggled when they went off to college to actually get the most out of their career services. So that's my expertise and background, and having said all of that, let's jump in. Okay, so regardless of where you go to school, odds are your university has a website that highlights their career services, and if you ever go in person, they're going to hand you a book that looks like the one that's here on the right. This one happens to be from Columbia, but they all generally look the same. They're beautiful, they're full of information, and they often get grabbed and then taken home and shoved in a drawer and never looked at again. But what their website and what this book are going to tell you are the things that they'll do for you. They'll look at your resume and cover letter. You can schedule one-on-ones with counselors. You can go to schedule interviews with companies or do practice ones. They'll go over non-traditional options with you, like joining the Peace Corps. You may be able to do some testing, like the Myers-Briggs type indicator and other things to test what your skills and interests may be. This is also a clearinghouse for jobs. Employers often will go straight to university career centers and post jobs exclusively with them. And they also put on a lot of events, whether it's a hiring fair, a workshop on how to improve your interviewing skills, public speaking. They put on a lot of things, and of course networking events with alumni. But this is like the list of what they'll do for you. I want to highlight the things that I think are important for you to take advantage of while you're a student or when you're a recent grad and still have access to these services. And those are these here. The one-on-one with counselors I think is very important. If you haven't done one already, schedule one with a career counselor at your career center as soon as possible. And if you don't like the person you meet with the first time, schedule another one. Just keep going back until you get someone that you can talk one-on-one with that is really going to hear what your hopes and goals and challenges are and can point you in a good direction. get practice interviewing. They offer this. Definitely take advantage of it. Interviewing is a skill, something that is honed over many years of practice, and the more practice you can get, the better. And these fairs and workshops and networking events I mentioned are very valuable. I know it can be scary or awkward or uncomfortable sometimes to go to these events, but it is definitely worthwhile if and only if you follow up with the people that you meet there. That's why I put that asterisk there. Now, the reason I didn't highlight these other services that Career Centers offer that are valuable, but I haven't highlighted them, if you can find those other places. There's online job searching, there's online resources. These are three that are some of the big ones out there that if you haven't heard of them, I recommend you check them out. And those will be available to you long after you graduate and can be used in conjunction with your university career services. I think a hybrid model of using both is a really good way to approach it. Okay, secret number one I have to share with you. Reciprocity agreements and being a friend of the university. Now, you may be thinking, what the heck is a reciprocity agreement? Well, I'm going to tell you. A lot of private universities have agreements with each other to help each other's alumni and students out. So, for example, if you went to a university, say in Seattle, a private university, and then shortly after graduation you relocated to Boston, and you're like, well, I can't go have a one-on-one with a career counselor. You could check the website of, say, Boston College to see if they have a reciprocity agreement with your university wherever you went. There are hundreds of universities that agree to this with each other. It's one of the secret ways that you can cash in your degree when you're not near your university. So do that research. See what other universities that may be closer to you or may offer something a little bit different. See if they have a reciprocity agreement with the university that you attend. Also, some of the state systems, the UC system, the College University System of New York, the Cal State, the Texas State, and I know that we have a few callers that are international, but this may apply there as well. A lot of these systems also will allow students from a sister campus to use their benefits. So even if you went to one campus and you somehow aren't able to use their services, there are others that are available to you. So that's something that's very important to ask about. And then the last thing is something to mention about alumni associations, and I'll talk more at length about alumni programs in just a moment, but a lot of alumni associations are independent nonprofit organizations affiliated with the university as opposed to being a department within the university itself. It's made up of alumni volunteers and leaders with a board of directors, and they rely on membership, much like if you ever watch public television or public radio and they do their membership drives. Alumni associations are a little similar. They want members. So one of the little secrets is you don't necessarily have to have graduated from a university in order to join that university's alumni association. I know it sounds kind of weird, but they have a category a lot of the time called being a friend of the university. And the membership fee is a little bit different. The number of resources you get may be a little bit different. But if your university doesn't have a robust alumni association that offers career services, but you're near one that does, for example, the University of California, Berkeley has a really strong one, you can go join as a friend of the university and tap into some of those resources, even if that isn't the school you went to. So those are a couple of secrets. With some of those secrets, you may need proof from your school that you were an attendee there and that you graduated. And always call ahead to check. Don't just start showing up at career centers and alumni association events without checking in advance that this, in fact, applies. But those are some secret ways to take advantage of some resources beyond just what your university offers. Okay, so some of you may be very familiar with what programs are available to alumni, but on the off chance you aren't, I'm going to go over it a little bit and point out a few that you may not have thought of as something that would be beneficial to your career, your networking, and getting yourself ready for life after college. A lot of alumni events. You may assume that this means explicitly athletic events and kind of the rah-rah university support, but there's actually a lot more to it. There are museum tours, there are concerts, there are happy hours, and these are things that you may think, I don't need to go to that. I have other ways of having fun. But there's more to it than that. And we'll come back to that, and I'll tell you what some of the good reasons to go to an event would be. Professional networking events, both virtual and in person. There's webinars, much like this one, but where you can interact with other alumni on a live feed. And then there's, of course, the professional networking events. Volunteerism is a big one, and I'm going to emphasize this later in the presentation, but volunteering with your alumni program is actually a really great way to get involved, meet potential mentors and advocates for you out in the workplace. So we'll come back to the different ways you can volunteer for university. And of course, a lot of alumni programs have regional chapters for alumni away from the university's home location that can be really helpful if you relocate for a job, or even if you are thinking about relocating for a job, you can reach out to those alumni that are participating in the regional chapter to start to ask about what it's like there. And then one thing that you may not be familiar with that I know about quite well because it was the student group that I advised is a lot of universities, hundreds of universities now have what are called student alumni associations. And these are groups of student leaders who specifically come together in a leadership capacity to organize events that connect students to alumni. It can be events such as dinner in the home of an alum, where students get to know alumni in that casual setting. It can be big industry-specific networking nights that the students market to other students while recruiting alumni volunteers to come to. So what I recommend is whatever university you are at, find out if there's a student alumni association. See if you can get involved, either as an event participant or even as a volunteer, because these students often have kind of a secret extra connection to alumni leaders because of the events that they're planning. So at minimum, find out if your school has one and go to their events, and then perhaps try to get involved if that's something that you are interested in. If you've already graduated, see if you can volunteer as an alum at one of the Student Alumni Association's events. It's a really good clearinghouse for interaction between students and alumni. Also, other student groups, fraternities and sororities, student groups that are specific to your major, anything that you were involved in outside of the classroom, see if somebody has been keeping track of your predecessors who were students and who are now alumni. They may be involved in your alumni association, and that's a great way to network, is calling and saying, hey, we were in the same Young Entrepreneurs Society. Can I do an informational interview with you? Those are good pockets of alumni to reach out to, and a lot of times your alumni office will have that information, so call them and ask. Okay, so back to what I said about going to the events. I know a lot of us would rather stay home, binge on TV shows, be in our pajama pants on a weeknight or a weekend than go to a networking event. It sounds awful sometimes, right? But if you're thinking about it as a way to make friends or to have fun and, you know what, I'd rather do something else, that could be, you could be getting in your own way. So I wanted to point out a couple of reasons why you might want to consider going to an alumni event that's sponsored by your university. One, it's a great way to leverage that which you have in common with alumni, other than just the fact that you went to the same university. There are a lot of groups, they're called clubs or chapters for affinity groups, whether it's LGBT, Latino alumni. It also can be regionally based or based on your major. These are great ways to connect the dots with other people who may be able to help you in your career, besides, oh, we just went to the same school. It also gives you a chance to connect with people outside of your own age group. And I know that may sound like a no-brainer, and I almost regret this picture that I chose because it shows an old man with a bunch of young people, and not all alumni are old men. I know we sometimes, when we picture alumni, that's the image that comes to mind. But truthfully, someone who's even just 5 years older than you, if you can connect with them at this event, they can give you some really helpful advice about getting your foot in the door at either the company or in the industry that you're interested in, and they can even offer to help you somehow. And connecting with these various age groups, I think, is really important because that's going to be the reality of your workforce as well. It's not just going to be the senior leadership that's way ahead, like way down the road in their career and the fellow young people who you just graduated with. There's a lot of in between. And going to these alumni events is a way to get used to that. If you are thinking about relocating for a job, or if you already have, your university alumni group is a great resource for you. These are people who have done it, are looking to connect with other people who went to the same school. It can really help you feel a little bit of home away from home if you take a job or are aiming for a job in a new place where you don't know very many people. And last but not least, as you network, you're going to look at things like LinkedIn. You're going to see the names of people who you might be interested in contacting. And I think we all know that picking up the phone or sending an email to somebody you've never met is intimidating and scary and truthfully not very effective. But if you've gone to an event and you actually did meet the person, you did get their business card, it makes it a lot less scary a few days later or a week later to call them or email them and say, you know, I'm really interested in what you do for a living. Could we schedule a follow-up conversation, a cup of coffee, so I can do an informational interview, learn more about how you leveraged your degree from our university into your career. So these are some reasons why it's good to pay attention to the events that your university is offering for alumni and to go and participate. I mentioned volunteerism earlier, and you may think that you're either too busy or you're not interested in volunteering. Well, I have a couple of reasons here I want to share with you. So if altruism and making friends is not enough to motivate you to volunteer for university, I have a couple of things that might be. First, think of it as a networking investment. You are going to meet a lot of interesting people who take on a lot in their life and are kind of doers and the go-getters if you get involved and volunteer. These are the people that show up to things. These are the people that offer their time. And if you become one of them, it really strengthens your network. And these can be advocates for you for their company or any number of other reasons. So I think it's a really good networking investment for you. A lot of these volunteer opportunities you can add to your resume. So if you have a gap in your resume between when you graduate from college and when you enter the job market, if you've been volunteering during that time, that looks really good as opposed to, oh, I was just job hunting and figuring out my life for 6 months. So adding that to your resume can be really helpful. This is also, you hear about the hidden job market and may wonder what is the hidden job market. Here's where a lot of it happens. People who know each other and then have an opening at their business or hear of one that a friend is hiring for, they often will turn to the people that they've seen in action and alert them to the fact that a job's going to be coming up before that job is even posted. So say you volunteered every Saturday for a couple of months with the same CEO of a company, they may think of you and say, hey, this person I know is looking for work, has been volunteering with me, he or she would be great. I'm just going to let her know that this position's opening up. And then the last thing I want to mention here is this group in the bottom right-hand corner. A lot of universities in the last 10 to 15 years have started creating what are called young alumni councils. They often are, their main goal often is to help fundraise for the university. Now, I know there's a lot of mixed feelings when it comes to university fundraising. A lot of people don't like to be asked for money, especially when they're still paying off student loans. And a lot of people don't like to ask for money because it feels weird or uncomfortable. But let me tell you this, the people on Young Alumni Council, think about who they're interacting with. They're interacting with significant level donors. Significant level donors aren't necessarily just cranky old rich people. These are industry leaders. These are philanthropists who care about the life of the university enough to both show up to events and to give their money. These are people you want to rub elbows with. And so if your university offers a Young Alumni Council, I would seriously consider joining it, because not only will you meet fellow young alumni who are really putting it out there and investing their time, you'll also learn a valuable skill, which is how to fundraise. And there's hardly any industry that you go into that wouldn't be something impressive on your resume, is that you've helped fundraise for your university. So that's something to keep in mind. Secret number 2 to utilizing your career services and alumni relations is get to know your advisors, anyone who works for the university who is assigned to guide your student group, your dissertation, whatever it is. Those advisors and staff they could be coaches, they could be administrators. A lot of times these people know everybody and they know how to grease the wheels and get you the student services that you want and need. There are a lot of staff at universities, because we often think of university, this is my little side note, we often, when we think about the universities, we think about the students and the teachers, the faculty, and then maybe some really high-level administrators. But I think a lot of students forget that there are, depending on the size of your university, hundreds, if not thousands, of people who are considered university staff. And a lot of those staff members make a career at that university. I have known people who've worked in student affairs in the Career Center for 10, 15, 20 years. In that process, they have gotten to know a lot of alumni, a lot of employers. You can tap their network and their expertise simply by getting to know them and asking. And I experienced that when I worked at UCLA for a long time, but the students who really took the time to sit down and have a one-on-one or go to coffee and ask and kind of pushed me and said, how can you help me? I would gladly help. But the ones that didn't ask, I wasn't, going to their dorm room and being like, knocking on the door and saying, hey, what do you need? What can I help? But if you ask, if you get to know those staff, they can really be advocates for you who will help you. LinkedIn. Now, I know most of you already have a LinkedIn profile. If you don't, go create one. But how and when to use it, particularly as it pertains to your university, may be a little bit cloudier. So here are the things that once you've created that profile, once you've started adding some connections, here's some things that I think you should do to grow it and connect it back to your college degree. Join groups that are affiliated with your university. Sometimes they'll be created by the university itself. Sometimes alumni will take it upon themselves to create their own subgroup that is specific to their industry or their company. Join them and then introduce yourself to people within those groups. If you are willing to make the investment, LinkedIn does offer a premium level subscription. It's a little bit expensive, so I don't know that it's for everybody, especially if you're still in school, but if you do want to make an investment in it, it opens up a feature that can be really helpful, and that's what this picture on the right side of the screen is. It's their education feature where you can enter any major, and it will show you professionals who majored in that, and then it'll give you stats on what company they work at, what their job function is, where else they went to university. So it could be really helpful if you're considering graduate school or if you have a particular target company in mind. So that feature is something that is kind of hidden within LinkedIn that may be useful to you if you want to pay that extra fee. Also, you don't have to connect to someone in order to communicate with that someone. So if you happen upon a fellow alum from your institution that either works at a company or in a capacity that you find interesting, that's aspirational for you, but you either don't want to connect with them right away because you've never met and that feels kind of awkward, or if you're afraid they'll reject your wanting to connect on LinkedIn, that's not the only option that's available to you. LinkedIn has a feature called InMail, and you can see in the bottom left it gives detailed instructions on how to send one. But you can, on their profile, click on send email, and then in the body of the message, tell them why you're reaching out to them. Highlight the fact that you have something in common with them and that you're trying to build your network and that as a student you're looking for opportunities to learn. And this can be a really effective way. I've done it several times at the professional level as opposed to the alumni level. It's a really good feature that LinkedIn offers and a way to leverage your profile there. And lastly, and this kind of goes with the education feature I mentioned, but you don't have to do it, this is a good way to do some research. See what the path your fellow alumni took after they graduated to get where they are. Sometimes, often, it is not linear. There may be people who at 30 or 35 or 40 are doing really interesting things, and the fact that their profile on LinkedIn, if it's public, and a lot of them are, you can see, okay, well, this person waited tables and did retail for 2 years after they graduated, but you know what? They turned out okay because then they started their own business and now have 500 employees. It can be an interesting way to research and develop contacts, but it can also be reassuring sometimes to see that when you graduate, how you leverage your university degree doesn't always happen immediately. Sometimes it's a little bit farther down the road. So LinkedIn is a nice, safe way that you can do at 2 o'clock in the morning from your apartment if you want to research alumni from your university or even universities you're considering for future study to see what they've done and to think about whether or not you want to get in contact with them. Secret number 3. Universities, and a lot of students and recent grads often feel that their university doesn't pay close personal attention to them, particularly after they graduate. And that is a totally normal, understandable way to feel. But what I want you to do for a second is take a step back and think about the sheer numbers of people that universities are asked to serve, and then think about the number of people who are actually paying for that service. So students, by and large, are covering the cost of their service through the Career Center via their student fees and tuition. But that center, the Career Center, has expenses way beyond delivering those services to students because they've got alumni coming to them wanting services, they've got employers who want to have meetings, they have staff and benefits that they have to pay for. So the fraction that students have paid really doesn't cover the total cost. So when you step back and you think about some of these major universities, I'll speak from the UCLA perspective, UCLA has almost 500,000 alumni. And the staff in the Career Center and Alumni Association that are dedicated to serving them is very small. It's a couple dozen people and a budget that is, and we all hear about how university budgets are limited. So when you think about it in the scope of there's that many alumni and there's such a small group of staff and professionals trying to serve those alumni, of course they're not going to be able to give you personal attention unless, here's my secret, the squeaky wheels absolutely get the grease. I don't know if you're all familiar with that colloquialism, but if you show up and ask for help over and over again, be it in the form of asking for informational interviews, volunteering with your alumni association, going to events and not only going but asking questions, introducing yourself to the staff that are running the event, introducing yourself to the keynote speaker. If you are following your university on Facebook or Instagram, be one of the people who comments regularly. Being the squeaky wheel in different ways, then you are going to get that personal attention. They can't ignore you if you keep coming to stuff and keep asking for help. Now, don't be obnoxious about it. Be polite, be professional, be prepared to have somebody tell you they don't have time or we've already worked with you. Be tenacious and be the squeaky wheel, and the people that work at the university, the alumni volunteers who volunteer with their alumni association, eventually they are going to listen, they are going to help, and they are going to connect you to other people. And the reason I say that is my observation after almost 15 years in this industry is the people who work in student affairs and alumni relations often do it because they love it. They do it because they want to see students succeed. They do it because they want to see alumni have a good experience after they leave the university and still feel good about the university. I can tell you right now, they do not do it for the pay, and they do not do it for the life-work balance, because these people work long hours for low pay, and they do it because they want to see you guys succeed. They really do. So be that squeaky wheel. You will get the help you need. But if you sit in your room waiting for the university to call you and say, hey, we found a great job for you, you're going to be waiting forever. So get out there, keep talking to people, especially the ones that work at the university. Okay, to kind of recap and sum up what we've talked about, I'm going to go over a little bit of here's how to maximize the return on investment of your status as an alum of the university. First, join your alumni association. The membership fees truly are nominal when you think about the length and scope of your career and connection to the university. And if your alumni association calls you to invite you to an event, don't automatically hang up on them, assuming that they're just trying to get you to donate to the university. Alumni associations, by and large, while of course raising money for the university would be a great effect of your involvement, that's not their core purpose. Their core purpose is to provide services and give opportunities to you for having gone to the university. Again, go to things. Even though sometimes you have to drag yourself out, putting on your shoes often is the hardest part. Get yourself there. Definitely look for the people in the name tags or the t-shirts that indicate that they are staffing the event or volunteering at the event, and talk to them. Introduce yourself. Get their business cards so you can follow up with them later. Introduce yourself to the keynote speaker or panelist at the end rather than just darting out the door as soon as it's over. And most importantly, anybody you meet at these events, follow up with them. You'd be amazed at how few people do. I actually did a whole separate webinar called Call Me Maybe, the Art of Networking Follow-Up, that is all about how and when do you follow up after you've met someone at an event. Again, join those LinkedIn groups, but don't stop there. Use it, leverage that functionality that LinkedIn offers. Remember to connect with your advisors, your coaches, the other student affairs administrators that you met while you were on campus, and get them to be your advocate. Ask them to tap their networks and connect you to other alumni. And lastly, and I think this is so important, there's this great Woody Allen quote that I love of 80% of success in life is showing up. And that's so true. And you have to be gutsy and tenacious and show up to things and ask for help. So be that person who shows up. And you know, I say this when I speak publicly or serve on panels, I give out business cards left and right, and I tell people, add me on LinkedIn. Let me be one of your networks. I have thousands of people in my, and you'd be amazed at how many people just don't bother. Or I'll reconnect them later like, oh yeah, I've been meaning to. You know what? Ask for help, follow up with people, make those connections, and be tenacious about it. Okay, so that's the bulk of my content, but I wanted to open it up for questions, or if there were any points that you wanted me to go back and highlight more specifically, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you, Christy. Definitely learned a lot about career services and alumni benefits there. So we have a few questions that have been submitted. So let's get started with the Q&A. So why would a first-year student need to visit the Career Center, and what are the immediate and long-term benefits?
That's a great question. So one of the main reasons I think it's important to go to the Career Center early in your studies is a lot of the things you can learn from them about paths to certain careers, or those assessments that you can take of what you're interested in, what your skills are, that could actually inform whether or not, A, you want to change your major if you've already declared one and you may be considering a different one, or it can inform what internships to pursue early in your college career. So I know when you're a first-year student, you may not be thinking about internships just yet, but you should early. You don't want to wait until your senior year or even your junior year to start thinking about your internships if not getting them. If you, as a freshman or a sophomore, if you start thinking about what internships you might be interested in, the odds of you setting yourself up for success in order to get those internships and experience prior to graduation goes up if you've had the counsel and the resources of the Career Center already in your wheelhouse from day one.
Great. Our next question is, what is the most unique benefit you've seen an alumni officer offer? Also, what are the best ways to gather alumni email addresses?
Oh, okay, interesting question. So I think one of the more unique opportunities that I have seen, and it's something we did at UCLA and a lot of other universities have adopted it, is we have a program called Dinner for 12 Strangers. And alumni host dinners in their homes all over the world, not just near the university, but wherever they are. We've done them in London, we've done them in Shanghai, we've done them in Australia, where alumni open their homes and invite current students to come just have dinner and to talk. And it's one of the things that at first people are like, oh my God, that sounds so scary and uncomfortable to go meet strangers. And then the people that go to them and walk away feel so energized by seeing what alumni go do, getting to connect with them on a personal level, being grateful that the university connected the dots and got them to meet each other. So see, a lot of universities are doing them now. So see if your university offers that, and if your university doesn't offer it, and for those that are on the line that work at the university, this is a program that is actually really good to implement because it doesn't require a ton of staff time or budget in order to facilitate it, and it allows alumni to really take the lead on providing that event to students and to recent graduates. So that's one of the unique ones. The second question you asked about collecting alumni email addresses. First thing you might want to do is, in addition to LinkedIn, a lot of universities now have their own alumni directory that as an alumni association member or as a student, you have access to, where you can go in and you can connect someone via that alumni directory without having to collect any email addresses to begin with. Now, if you're truly after collecting email addresses for your own address book, that's where going to events and actually meeting people and asking them for their email address, or doing the in-mail feature of LinkedIn can be really helpful. Now, one word of caution to anyone who's collecting email addresses for alumni is you don't want to blast emails to alumni who perhaps haven't opted into receiving that message. So if this question came from an alumni relations staff person, that's a whole separate question, and perhaps if you want to go to my website and shoot me an email, I can talk to you about some strategies for collecting alumni emails. But if this is coming from a student or an alum who's trying to build their own personal network, I would stick with trying to meet people and using LinkedIn.
Excellent. Thank you, Christy. We have one more question before we wrap up. So where does alumni services best fit? Career services or foundation or others?
Okay, I think this is definitely one of the questions that came from a fellow alumni relations professional. And that is a question that a lot of universities grapple with and assess constantly. And if you are not already involved in CASE, the Council of Advancement and Support of Education, that is the biggest professional organization for alumni development, external affairs advancement professionals to come together. And their books and conferences are really good resources for tackling that particular type of question from a strategic planning. So that's my pitch for CASE, but I will say my personal opinion from what I've seen is alumni relations can do its best job when it is well funded. That to me means if it can be part of the umbrella of a university advancement department such as development, that could really benefit the number of and amount and quality of the programs that alumni relations is able to offer if they have that backing and funding and support from the bigger question. Having said that, there are alumni offices that are based in the student affairs department. There are alumni offices that house the career center both for students and alumni. I think any model that is approached has its pros and cons, but from what I have seen, the greater the stability and financial support of the alumni relations department, the better they'll be able to leverage and then deliver services. Because if it's in student affairs or if the career center is part of alumni, it ebbs and flows with enrollment, tuition, and other factors that can make it so you get this great program going or you're offering these great services and then budget cuts happen and you have to dial it back. So that's my 2 cents, but I do recommend if you're looking for that kind of in-depth organizational assessment, CASE, and you can find their website at case.org, is a really good first step.
Great point, Christy. And unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. And thank you, Christy, for your time today.
You're very welcome. And anyone feel free to reach out to me directly if you have follow-up questions.
All right. Thanks again for everyone joining us today, and have a nice day.